Let's talk about the trajectory of the backhand drive. Have you ever heard of the push first, then drive principle for the backhand? I'll demonstrate 3 strokes, see if you can identify the correct one. The first, the second, the third. Let's start with the first one, which is simply pushing the ball straight forward. The same principle applies to both sides. Simply pushing the ball forward, on either the forehand or backhand, is incorrect. Whether you push with an open or vertical racket face, it's still the wrong technique. The second mistake is a sideways, wiping motion, a very common error. During contact, your forearm shouldn't move sideways like a windshield wiper. You also can't snap or break your wrist. This movement is also incorrect. The reason the third stroke looks so good is because of my backswing mechanics. As I move forward to contact the ball, my racket face is already changing its angle. This is what makes the stroke look technically correct. This applies to the penhold grip as well, which is why the stroke looks so clean and technically sound. My stroke isn't a two-step push, then drive motion. Instead, the racket angle is changing during the forward movement, finishing with the drive. The push then drive theory is flawed because it describes 2 separate actions, which is incorrect. I believe the coach who came up with that concept likely misinterpreted the fluid motion of professional players. In reality, during the entire forward swing, the racket is never pushing straight. It's already creating an upward angle. The stroke moves forward, but it's not a direct push. The forearm is creating an upward angle throughout the forward motion, finishing with a rotation. That is the backhand drive. Understand that the stroke path has a forward component and a sideways component for a crosscourt shot. However, it's not directly sideways, nor is it a forward push, then sideways turn motion. That won't work. If you think push then drive, your stroke will only be a push. There's no time for the drive part. It becomes ineffective as the ball has already left the racket. So, as we move from the backswing to meet the ball, the racket head is continuously rotating. Crucially, this rotation does not come from the wrist after contact, such as by wiping or snapping it. Those are incorrect. I use my elbow to generate the rotation. I use my elbow as a pivot. Once you learn to rotate your forearm around your elbow, your backhand will start generating topspin. You can learn from my backhand. It's technically sound and looks good. For a backhand drive, my elbow tip points slightly down, whereas for a rip, it's higher. After about 2/3 of the forward motion, I engage my elbow with a slight downward press. From this angle, you can clearly see the forward swing followed by that elbow press. This elbow press is simply the rotation of the forearm around the elbow as a pivot. To be clear, this is for the backhand drive. The backhand rip uses a different principle. Now, watch my elbow and how it rotates. My motion is backswing, extend forward, then rotate the elbow. I believe many players struggle with the feeling of being unable to hit the ball crosscourt consistently. When you can't get the ball crosscourt, the common instinct is to try and snap the racket head with your wrist. In truth, this sideways direction doesn't come from the wrist or racket head. It comes from rotating the elbow after 2/3 of the stroke, which directs the forearm towards the crosscourt angle. For a drive, the wrist should be fixed. The elbow rotation is what directs your racket face to apply force towards the crosscourt target. It is not achieved by an independent rotation of your racket face, nor by a last-second snap or wipe of the wrist. For a backhand rip, using some wrist is acceptable because you're generating more friction. Many pros do this. However, when learning the fundamental backhand drive, your technique must be precise. The elbow rotation should occur after the 2/3 point of contact to direct your hand and force towards the crosscourt angle. Pay close attention to my elbow. Once you learn to execute that small rotation from the elbow, without overdoing it, while keeping it stable, you'll find you can hit crosscourt effortlessly and with more stability, without needing to snap your wrist. You won't need to force the direction with a sideways forearm motion anymore. To improve your backhand, focus on the elbow. During my backhand drive, notice that my elbow has almost no forward-backward movement. Even on a backhand rip, the elbow is very stable, with minimal movement. So, why is your backhand inconsistent? It's because your elbow is moving back and forth. If you pull the elbow back and push it forward, you'll risk injury. Therefore, to protect your elbow and improve your stroke, you must learn to keep it relatively fixed. Watch my backhand drive, with either grip. Observe how stable my elbow is, for both drives and rips. Rip. Drive. Don't let your elbow drift back and forth, you must stabilize it. Only then can your backhand drive be as effective as what I've demonstrated. If your elbow moves back and forth, you'll feel like you're going to miss after just a couple of shots. Because the backhand has limited space and less body power, you must brace your elbow and use a quick forearm acceleration to generate force effectively. Pulling the elbow back dissipates power. So, for the backhand drive, your elbow must be stable. This is when you'll truly feel how to generate power on your backhand. For a rip, the elbow is braced high. For a drive, it's braced slightly lower. In both cases, stability is key to power. A very slight elbow movement is acceptable, but it absolutely cannot be a large motion. Now, let's address wrist rotation in the backhand drive. Should you use it? The answer is no. What about for a backhand rip? Yes, there is some wrist rotation. But when you rotate the wrist, should you be snapping it? Absolutely not. The power for your backhand drive comes primarily from the forearm motion, backswing and follow-through. You might use a bit more upper arm for a shorter ball, but that's it. The backhand drive is dominated by the forearm because it's a close-to-the-table stroke. Only advanced players can hit backhand power shots from mid-distance, and for most of us, that would lead to errors. Therefore, in this situation, your backhand drive must be forearm dominant with a fixed wrist. Backswing, contact, follow through. As I explained, the final racket angle change is key. The reason my racket finishes facing crosscourt is not because I turned my wrist, but because my elbow acted as a pivot, which rotated my forearm. It is not a wrist turn with a static elbow. Therefore, you should not use your wrist on the backhand drive. If you want to produce a high-quality backhand punch or counterdrive in a rally, your wrist must be completely stable. The moment your wrist becomes unstable, the ball will fly off the table. Even on a backhand rip, the amount of friction-generating wrist action is not very large. Now let's talk about the arc of the backhand stroke. It's different from the forehand. Standing straight, a complete forehand follow-through finishes up here. However, I can't bring my backhand follow-through to that same height. People would correctly say I'm lifting my upper arm. Therefore, the height of the backhand drive's follow-through should be about 2/3 that of the forehand drive. My first coach told me that the backhand finish point should be towards the right shoulder. This means your follow-through should stop at about the height of your right shoulder, never up by your face, and never down at your chest. For the backhand drive, finishing towards the right shoulder is the perfect height. This provides a standard reference point, not too high, not too low. If your follow-through is too high, the stroke is too slow, even if the ball lands. If it's too low, you won't create enough arc when you're rushed by the ball. So, my personal advice is to aim for your right shoulder. This is the ideal height for your topspin strokes. For a backhand rip, you simply start the stroke higher but still finish towards the right shoulder. You're not lifting straight up or pressing straight down. Even with a higher starting point for the rip, notice how my follow-through still finishes in that same zone around my right shoulder. Just don't deviate too far from this area. Join our membership to unlock daily exclusive shorts and discover the coach's secret tips and tricks on table tennis technique. You'll also get our weekly on-court coaching series. Silver members get even more and also unlock the exclusive weekly Coach's Corner series. Thank you for supporting the channel's growth.